My question is to Shahid Kardar Saab. You mentioned about reforming regulatory reforms, policy reforms. Is there a headline roadmap for this? Should we do, one is to just forget about what we have and, construct a new regulatory framework. And the other is to make incremental or changes. Which one would be, useful for us? Because incremental gets, I don't know, has its own pitfalls, and of course, bringing something up from scratch, from the bottom up, will have its own. Thank you.
Our experience has been precisely that. ये issue वो नहीं है कि you change that section of a particular law. That won't take us anywhere. We can take a very clear decision, saying, oh, okay, when it comes to electricity, gas, there are certain areas where you can sit down, actually relook and re-examine the regulatory framework. I mean, also the state bank, as an example. All others, frankly, just do away with them. That's the only way. And for anyone who thinks that some kind of regulation is required should appear before, so even a committee of parliament, to justify that. Don't go into the business, I repeat, don't think of the possibility of looking or mapping these regulatory laws and start looking at each other. It won't take you anywhere. It won't take you anywhere.
My question is, what change in terms of government revenues will people like FBR and those who are barriers will be able to harness? Because in my opinion, what you're doing is expanding the tax base. Have you thought of any number of sorts?
From 1991, when these countries were liberated from the Soviet Union, okay, and the fact that they joined the European Union in 2003, it was a 12-year horizon.
Right.
How come they managed to do it in a 12-year horizon to be able to join the European Union when they were like backwards during the Soviet era? You know what? Majority of them introduced a flat tax regime. And that includes Russia, and it also includes Georgia, which is really not part of Eastern Europe. They're more like Central. And all these countries, all these economies, albeit they grew from a very low base, they were generating annual growth of 5%, 6% non-stop. And the tax revenues absolutely expanded, and the government didn't have to worry about foreign exchange reserve, didn't have to worry about tax revenues. The economy grew till the period where Brussels decided that it was the right time for them to join the European Union. And since then, they haven't reversed their tax policies. So I'm just giving an example that why the flat tax? Why the flat tax? It's proven that countries that introduced the flat tax benefited.
My concern was, how will the government of Pakistan look into this?
I don't know the future, how the future of Pakistan will be or how it will look like. Listen, I can predict the past, but I can't predict the future, all right?
Right.
But I can tell you that these are pro-growth policies.
Right.
And we have tried anti-growth policies in the past, and we come down to the same problem, like I said, the same circular problem, balance of trade problems, fiscal deficit problems. But if you start applying fair taxation, flat tax ideas, then you're going to create growth. There's a direct link between tax cuts and economic growth, and we will see how it works. Right.
Thank you.
He mentioned the IMF as an example of something which shouldn't be followed. But really the onus is on us as a country to present a different framework. I mean, I remember when 2018 program was being drafted by the fund, they actually called me wanted to discuss. And I said, yeah, what lessons have you learned? They in fact asked me a question, what lessons have Pakistan learned? I said, I want to ask you, what lessons have you learned? You're about to do the 23rd program. What lessons have you learned? And you're repeating yourself. Let us be clear, the fund actually does an accounting exercise in terms of making sure the funding is available, okay? Now the onus is on us. And I asked them, I said, look, your core competence is not circular aid or the energy sector. Your core competence is the tax policy and the monetary framework. I'm amazed that under your watch, we have the tax structure that we have today with 68 different kinds of withholding taxes. Can you look me in the eye? This is your core competence, not ours. And you've allowed such a structure to exist, and you continue to support it, and they will continue to do so because they will frankly carry out an accounting exercise. The onus is on us to present a different framework of addressing our issues. If we fail to do so, they will look at it, and a typical fund program is really either a 1-year standby or really a 3-year EFF. Now that is the onus, I repeat, is on us to present a framework which it will achieve the objectives that we've been referring to.
If we do a reality check, we're under an IMF program, and that curtails what we can do. And we have 20 billion to pay in the next fiscal year, so it's likely we'll be in another IMF program. So if we are realistically planning, isn't it the case that we need to plan within the terms of this program, and then maybe 2 years later, I mean, that's the reality. We can dream the best situation for business, but we're not going to be able to do it. And the second question on the charter of the economy, so we have elections coming up and we have a charter. How many political parties have signed up on to this charter? Because that is what is needed before an election. If a charter is to hold some weight, then we need political parties to sign up.
They all have to sign up. If one party signs and the other party doesn't sign, it's not going to it's not going to do anything at all. And a charter of economy is like the charter of democracy that was signed during Zardari's period, and that led to the NFC, the 7th award. So the charter of economy without a political party and stakeholder signature on the paper, it's not going to work. They have to sign up on it.
Can I very quickly? One, the issue is the capability from our side. You're under a fund program at the moment, but there will be a next fund program. Frankly, the negotiations will start immediately after a new government is in power. That's the time to be able to do so. So if you have the capability, there is no problem. It's the one that you have to achieve a certain objective. The objectives we've been talking about, and it is our ability and capability that we have to demonstrate. As far as the so-called Charter of Economy is concerned, frankly, I have no illusion that it can happen. For the simple reason, show me a program produced by any political party on the economy. Just show me any political party having shown a program which actually sets out what they will do, the steps that they will take, what will be the sequencing. Not one. So how can you even think of a Charter of Economy which everyone else will sign to? No one. I repeat, see the work that PIDE has done. And we all know that you will refer to manifestos. Manifestos are a series of English, sentences, not linked to each other. God knows what those sentences actually even mean. The reality is, have they sat down, worked through it? And we keep talking about, I keep hearing things like consistency of policy and so on and so forth. I don't even know what any of the political parties is thinking. Forget consistency of policy. I have no idea what they're thinking. If anyone does, please let me know, because I'd like to be educated.
What options are available to Pakistan, keeping in view the experience of Sri Lanka, where China took a very long time to grant them the debt restructuring, and as a result, they defaulted. So what is the future of Pakistan? Do you think that there will be a condition of the IMF for the new program to restructure the debt and then come to us? Thank you.
We should be clear on one thing, that you will have to be in a fund program to qualify for debt restructuring, because the debt sustainability analysis will be determined and provided by the fund. Take care. So let's first be clear.
Which Pakistan are we talking about? There's a Pakistan of masses and there's a Pakistan of classes. And when I work in different parts of Pakistan with disadvantaged communities, they have no idea that all these policies and tax, as you said, sir, Dr. Kardar, the English sentences. So maybe this can be unpacked, and this is a comment and a query as well. Sir, I understand, Dr. Raoji, that elite capture is global. But just because it is global, it happens in other developing countries. Should we legitimize it? And what is the way to address it, the elite capture?
ये देखिए elite की जहाँ तक बात है ना, I mean all countries have elites. ऐसी बात नहीं है. How to what extent is the elite enlightened in its own self-interest, enlightened self-interest, to be able to make the kind of changes that we think? We seem to have a very selfish, elite. And who creates that elite in our case is not necessarily, created by the Goras or whatever, but the reality is also the kind of permissions on, import substitution given by the government. So in a sense, most of it can be done. Now, obviously, we know some of them can't be done because they're sitting in parliament when it comes to the agriculture income tax, when it comes to doing something about sugar and so on and so forth. But that's the real test of the future.
How can we really tell the government that you need to change all of this? Because it's all in the hand of government. We all say that we need to bring all these changes. If we protest, then it will end up death, violence, and then no one wants to do that. So how can we tell the government that this needs to be changed? This is cruel.
The only solution is शोर मचाते रहें. आप उनको वोट डालते हैं ना, why do you vote for them? ठीक है ना, we perhaps should have an option, none of the above. So, but yeah, please शोर मचाते रहें. And I'm reminded that about 4 or 5 years ago, I ran into Abid Hassan Manto. Some of the older guys like me would remember who he is. And he was very political activist, very highly respected. So I said to him, वो आबिद साहब बड़े चुप हैं. कहता है यार शोर मचा के भी देख लिया. So that could be one of the things, but for heaven's sake, it's your future. We've done our bit, we haven't done a great job. But you're the guys, frankly, the young should be standing up and saying, no more of this. Only you can do it. Keep shouting, keep insisting, go out, hanker them. That's the only way I can think of. Because frankly, I don't see a future in the sense of us being able to convince them. So maybe that's the way forward for you all to actually take a view. Become active politically, bhai. ये भी तो देखें ना, हमारी generation में बहुत लोग हैं शोर मचाते रहे but never became part of the political process. Why don't you all become part of the political process? जाएं, fight an election, and hopefully over a period of time you'll be able to bring enough pressure to get the kind of change that we all are hoping for and pleading for and wishing for.
My question is from Dr. Ikram, and it is about the viability of super taxes. The first time it was levied some years ago, it was to help the ITPs of Sawat, and it was for 1 year, but then it continued for another year, and very recently taxable income slabs have been defined against the super tax, which means that it is here to stay and it is not going anywhere. So after so many years, I believe that ITPs of Sawat is not an issue, but the super tax is still there. So how does FPR or the government of Pakistan justify this kind of tax?
Super tax has two aspects. One is purely constitutional and the other is tax policy decision. Constitutionally, you cannot levy tax in addition to income tax. What they have done, unfortunately, the second time is that they have imposed tax in addition to income tax rather than in lieu of something. But earlier imposition in the name of internally displaced person was challenged, and constitutionally it was issue whether federal government can levy some tax with the purpose and then without establishing any separate fund for that, for reimbursement for the purpose it was imposed. So on both the occasions there are a lot of litigation is going on, and unfortunately till today there is no final order from Supreme Court. In certain cases like 4B, which was earlier for internally displaced person, now the matter is in favor of FBR, but taxpayers are in Supreme Court by way of leave to appeal has been granted. 4C, last year it was challenged, this year too it has been challenged, and the only question there is whether they can levy this kind of tax in addition to. So for better choice for them can be, if they think that people, they want to increase tax on rich people earning beyond 150, so they can just add up to their tax brackets rather than coming from the side of super tax, which is under the present legal position, which I little know, is unconstitutional, because you cannot, as I mentioned, that impose tax in addition to income tax. You can only impose some kind of presumptive taxes in lieu of taxes. So it's a highly technical issues under the Constitution. From tax policy perspective, if they think that they want to tax more the rich people, they have always the option to go beyond 35%. So practically this is now effective rate of tax will go up 35% in different brackets. We can calculate it differently. So this is the crux of the matter. Thank you.